and welcome to Real Triad Reviews. We are a triad this week, but this week we are down a normal co host and up a guest, so uh, it works out. Tonight we've got all the movie things, also known as Brian, with us tonight, and of course, to my far left is Mr. Marvelite. How we doing tonight, guys?
Doing fantastic.
Doing great. A little
Good.
nervous. Honored to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome to be here. We love chatting movies, and your knowledge is definitely welcome, no doubt. So we've got a few movies we're doing tonight, and I have some screaming in the background. That's okay. We'll manage. Um, we're going to move over to the poster wall, which shows the movies tonight are going to be Explorers, Enemy Mine, and The Last Starfighter. And because the world is going insane about James Gunn's Suicide Squad, we will be reviewing Suicide Squad next weekend. It should be a good time, especially considering the Rotten Tomato score and all the different things that we keep hearing. That being said, how's Marvelite's week been?
Um, don't ask me about my week. Otherwise, I mean, like, okay, so TikTok wise, fantastic. Um, you guys, like everybody in the chat, that jumps in and stuff on Twitch, it's been fantastic. But I am to the point where I'm ready to change jobs. So
Oh, man.
if anybody wants to be my sugar
Oh.
daddy, maybe that might work for me too. So I'm just, yeah, I'm just so done.
I have no sugar and I can't be even a sugar baby. That's an 80s reference. We'll be doing a lot of those 80s references tonight, considering,
Mhm.
well, we're watching a bunch of 80s movies tonight. So, anyway, uh, I wish I could. It always seems like I'm doing so well because I have this filter, right here. But that's it. Hello, cowgirl. Welcome to the chat. Thank you for being here. Let's give a round of applause to the chat. So I get all these sounds that I can't use, but considering one of the movies we watched tonight, it was loaded with really amazing sound effects as well as Foley, which I thought we could talk about some Foley tonight because I couldn't help but listen to Explorers and really enjoy the Foley that was throughout the whole film. And it was dual layered. There was like the obvious like film Foley where it felt like the characters, it felt like it was right there, and then everything that was canned and sound like it came out of a television was also there. So there was like two layers of it. If you guys don't know, Brian is quite the expert when it comes to film breakdown as far as cinematography, the language of the set, if you will, how stories break down. And so we're going to pick his brain about these classics. Why don't we start with The Last Starfighter, since I know that Marvelite was not thrilled about revisiting this film, even though I think it's widely accepted as a classic of the 80s. And that's no slight against Marvelite at all. But
yeah, I understand that.
being that it's a video game movie, or I'm sorry, a movie about video games would be a better way to put that, and a movie about basically a Star Wars ripoff. Let's start there and see what we can come up with as far as how the movie breaks down and what we think, and where the nostalgia falls. I guess would be a good place to put that. So Marvelite, let's hear it. I want to hear. I'm really anxious to hear what you thought this time through. I'm really anxious.
Okay, well, okay, so the storyline wasn't as bad as I remember it being, and I'm gonna be honest with you. This was not a childhood. This was not fondness. Now, at some point in my childhood, it wasn't until I was about 8 or 10 that I really got into um doing more like space sci-fi stuff. And so like I was a little bit later. I didn't grow up on Star Wars. I had all the toys, but I didn't want to watch the movies, and then it was a little bit later that I watched them. So for me, um Last Starfighter never appealed to me. For the time, the graphics were, beyond what was expected. They really went for the CGI in that film, and I thought it was very ambitious. But mind you, like it didn't age well. It would be interesting to see if anybody would ever go back and remaster it,
I think that would be brilliant,
and
personally.
kind of do like a Lucas special edition version. the plot was very very campy, which is fine. It was good. You know, you have the premise of a video game. You know, is actually leads to something bigger and greater. Um, and I mean, Centauri and some of these characters just never really fleshed out, which I thought was hilarious. Like this kid becomes so emotionally invested in characters that really did nothing but either like lied to him or didn't really tell him what was going on
It was the
until
80s,
later. And
man. It was the 80s. You didn't need a lot of exposition to trust the guy that's going to take you off planet to make you a starfighter.
the Goonies had more exposition in the first 20
I know,
minutes
I know,
than the
I know,
movie
I
had
know,
the entire
I know.
time. Let's
So
just go with it.
that's no, you're right. You're right. So these three movies are really interesting because they actually all three kind of embody the 80s in a sense of like the way we approach sci-fi. We had the fun whimsical, which is the Last Starfighter. It was there's very little negative in this film. Even the like, oh no, something bad happened moment is taken away. It's not that bad.
And the villain wasn't even like he was just like a whiny kid. Like
He
he
was.
didn't have any. There was no interaction between the main hero and the villain, other than the villain sent people to try to kill him. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
okay. I understand.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Like,
he was almost like a rich kid, like a whiny rich kid in a way, you know, that had this like, I got the scepter. You're gonna listen to me, you know, kind of thing. But
can we
yeah.
also say that the only character in this film that probably explained the film and its premise the best was the robot?
Oh, the beta is us. We are the beta
Yeah,
man. Like we're the beta unit.
yeah,
But,
yeah.
like he just finally breaks protocol and tells everybody everything, and it's like,
Yeah,
finally, now we know what's going on. It's like
Yeah.
great.
I like that the whole thing was an accident. I mean, this is an 80s movie, so I promise if you come in here, we're going to be spoiling these older movies. We're going to pick them to pieces, so just be aware. But it is an accident that it was delivered to Earth. Centauri does go into that and talks about how it should have
Yeah.
been delivered to a whole other system.
Right.
You know, there's some fate wrapped up in this, and I understand
Mhm.
everybody's gripe about, you know, sci-fi versus fantasy. So like this is the big like universal nerd argument, I think, in a larger scheme. Some people grow up fantasy, some people grow up sci-fi. And if you didn't watch Star Wars and you didn't watch all these knockoffs, which all three of these movies are Star Wars knockoffs, like it or not, then you went, you know, the other path where you watched Willow or you watched
Mhm.
oh, see, I'm not going to be able to list them off because I didn't watch those. I was the sci-fi kid. I watched all these. You know, I guess maybe you watched
Oh
Goonies
yeah,
or you
Willow,
watched
Legend,
Legend,
Legend, yeah.
Goonies,
yes.
Mhm.
or even
or the Hanna-Barbera the Hanna-Barbera Hobbit
yes,
cartoon.
yes, stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and Brian, don't be afraid to. We're both talkers. You just jump right in here and just, you know,
All right, yeah,
elbow
yeah.
your way right into the middle. We will
Because
give
you're
you
like,
the floor.
you'd be like, I agree with your opinion, but you're wrong. It's perfect.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, for me, I mean, it's like, I mean, I've done videos about it on TikTok too, and like, it is like one of my all-time favorite films. So it's almost the opposite of what Marvelites kind of like is on the opposite end of the spectrum. But I mean, I can't fault them for it, you know, like especially if like you didn't grow up with it or like didn't really like it as a kid, you're probably not gonna like it as an adult either. Like for me, there's a lot of this nostalgia to it. I mean, it's classic wish fulfillment story. You know, you like, I mean, I love the idea of like in this video game and being the best at it doesn't just mean you get to like put your name on the top score. You get like recruited to go to go to. I mean, it's insane, right? And, like you have a good point of like just kind of like follow Centauri along, and you know, but I mean, I love just that premise, this wish fulfillment premise that we could like send to like some reality of being a starfighter, you know.
to me that's what the 80s was all about. Is we lived in a
Yeah.
world that was full of some pretty nasty stuff, and the world had gone through its
Right.
hiccups and ups and downs. But the movies like that, like ET, even though it's got a sad ending, it was still like, but
Oh
I
yeah,
was chosen,
yeah,
I was picked. Explorers has the
yeah.
same feeling about
Mhm.
they were picked. You could be one of these kids, even
Yeah,
with
exactly.
the Dick Miller part where he's like, oh, you know, because we're kind of skipping around movies here, but in Explorers, Dick Miller, the
Mhm.
guy from Gremlins,
Yeah, yeah,
classic
yeah, yeah.
actor, rest in peace. He did
Right.
die a couple years ago. He talks about how he had the same dreams and how when he was young and now again is having the same kind of dreams. He wished he could have done it, and he wishes the kid well
Yeah.
rather than freaks out on
Right.
him like Keys would have done in ET. Keys turned the
Yeah.
alien in. We didn't want that. Keys is good bad. He's weird. Like, if you guys don't know what Keys is, he's a character from ET. He's the guy that you always see his keys, and that's where his name
Yeah.
comes from. Played
Yeah.
by Peter Coyote, amazing actor. Anyway,
Yeah.
what's up, Captain Salty Dog? Thank you for coming
Yo,
to
Salty
the Real
Dog.
Triad Theater Reviews. This is all the movie things who you may not know from TikTok. If you don't know him, go over and follow him right away. If you do know him, continue to follow him and watch his stuff. So yeah, we're talking classic movies. Let me move on over to the poster wall again. My child is really into screaming tonight. I apologize to the audience. We've got Explorers, Enemy Mine, and The Last Starfighter, and next week we'll be doing Suicide Squad. Moving back. So, we're in the middle of talking about Last Starfighter, which I will also concede. I understand that... Wow. I understand that it's not for everybody, especially if you didn't see it when you were a kid. It'd be like watching Willow now. If you watched Willow now and you weren't into fantasy, it would hit wrong to me. And it's not because, Val Kilmer isn't great. It's not because Warwick Davis isn't fantastic. It's because the special effects are bad. No offense to 80s special effects artists, because you guys did amazing, but they fail hard when it's the crossover. I don't know if it's the Harryhausen style, but it's that dual layered, you can tell it's, I don't even know what it's called. We've got an expert. What is that called?
So was the Rancor your least favorite thing in Star Wars?
No, because I ignored the background because it's big enough, and I love how the Rancor trainer gets all sad. And I would have gotten sad too, man. I would have been like, you crushed that dude's head, man. That ain't cool. Anyway.
Okay.
So yeah, that's
Agree to disagree.
But I think this movie hit for me because I love video games, and I grew up in a trailer, for a while, from I think the age 10 to like 14. My parents had a single wide trailer, so that hit perfectly. My parents hated video games, which means I loved them. Space was my thing, because if you were a kid in the 80s, space was your thing.
Mm-hmm. There was a lot of sci-fi in the 80s, yeah. And I have to mention too, like, significance in film history that Last Starfighter holds is that it really, I mean, you had mentioned it just moments ago, Marvel, that it really, took a chance with doing it was the first film to do full CG scenes and sequences. Like all those space scenes and everything were fully CG. And I mean, yeah, you can tell that's like very polygonal and like angular,
yeah.
But I mean, it was easier to do that with ships,
we could recreate those graphics on our phones now.
I know, and we should.
Yeah.
We should recut it
on our phones than they had, and they did that.
I know.
That's actually rather amazing on that point. Yeah.
Now, okay, I'm going to add to that. I'm going to layer right on top of that. So the computers that they used to generate those graphics were actually more powerful than the computers they used to land on the moon. Anyway, just thought I'd put that out there for fun.
Well, I mean, say it's movie magic either way, right?
Oh boy. So, but this movie and the three total films plus, we listed a whole array of films for tonight. We couldn't even narrowing it to these three was a little difficult, in a sense, because although I pushed for two of them, I know Marvelite was pushing for one of them, and then there was at least 14 others on the list that we just kind of were like, yes, but that still feels like maybe it came after, or maybe a better show for something. I don't know. These were all within like 2 or 3 years of each other, and all definitely stemmed from every glorious thing that was the Star Wars trilogy. Every movie ripped off the Star Wars trilogy in 1985. Like, that's just what you did. But could you find your own place? And I think all three of these films successfully found their own place.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah. I mean, it was like, what, 84 was Last Starfighter, then the other two were 85. So yeah, around that time, Jedi had already come out. So everyone was, and you can imagine what studios are trying to do, right? They're trying to we got to ride this sci-fi wave. and
Right.
try to like make as many sci-fi properties as we can. So let's do it. And of course, hopefully they can spawn, merchandise from those films as well, which obviously looking back that didn't really happen with these films. So
I know it's
No.
even hard to find the posters for these movies. Like even
Yeah.
even just digitally, like they're not
Totally.
there.
Mhm.
I felt for a while that I actually had some Last Starfighter toys, but looking back and looking to research, because I had like the guys with the headgear and everything, and I had
Yeah.
characters like that, but it was basically just generic sci-fi characters. They didn't really do anything for those. I mean,
No.
at this point when it was either Star Wars toys or He-Man and Masters of the Universe.
Right. Yeah.
And well,
Don't
I
forget
think maybe
Transformers
And I think Ninja Turtles
Yeah,
started coming out
Transformers
at that point.
and
Yeah.
Turtles.
GI
Yeah.
Joes.
GI
Yeah.
Joes were huge.
Mhm.
The 3 3/4 inch
Yeah.
GI Joes, not the giant. The giant ones from
Yeah,
our
exactly.
parents' age.
Oh, see,
were-
now I just got
Yeah, right.
nostalgic then now because I'm thinking about all those Kenner preview books that they used to give in the bigger toys.
Kenner.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember
And you literally would put check
KB's?
marks and X's.
Oh yeah.
KB Toy
Remember
Stores?
KB
Do you guys remember
Toys?
that?
Yeah.
Oh, I remember
Uh-huh.
KB Toys. We used to my uncle used to buy toys at KB Toy Store and we would return it for money and then go buy the cheaper toys at Toys R Us.
I loved both of those stores.
that's
I
awesome.
would go to one and then the other because they had different stuff, and it was fantastic.
Right.
Captain
Yeah,
Salty
yeah.
Dog says my '80s experience was drug PSAs and GI Joe, but that was the leftovers from the '90s. Yes, no,
Yeah,
the
man.
drug PSAs absolutely, and yeah, everybody had GI Joes. I made models and put my GI Joes in the models and had them drive around and then had them explode, and we
You're right.
broke a lot of rules in the '80s.
Yeah.
That's why I thought this would be
Yeah.
fun. Explorers,
totally.
though.
Oh my
I'm
goodness.
sorry. Let's finish up with Last Starfighter because I know that there's not.
I have one question because now
There's a
we're
couple
talking about
things
the
to
80s.
break it down, but I think Explorers is a much more complex film. But anyway, go ahead.
I have to ask this one question because I have to know if I was the only kid that did this in the 80s. Did anybody else have like your parents like had the fake ficus plants or whatever in the household? And of course they were always based with like they were buried in like a base with dirt or like sand, and you buried your toys in the sand only to find them later like eaten by the sand.
No,
Am I the only person that did
No,
that, or was
never
that
did that.
everybody?
you are not the
I
only
never
kid
did
that
that.
had
Okay,
that.
okay. I feel normal now. Thank
Yeah.
you.
That's funny though.
I would
Would've
find
probably done that.
those cat treats as you keep going through sometimes as well. It was never good. We also I grew up like suburban 80s, but I also grew up in the country part of my 80s grow up period, and so we had a lake we went to, and so I actually drove my
Oh,
Tonka
cool.
trucks like into the lake and lost them that way instead of in the sand. But
Oh wow.
to each.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, of course.
Salty
Well-
Dog, he had a mint Buzz Aldrin moon landing set, and he blew it up with an M80.
Whoa. Oh,
His
dude.
inheritance, that's as normal as a partial board wood walls. Wait, what? That did not read right. That's as normal as partial board wood walls. It did read right. I just don't
wood.
understand it.
Like wood
Particle.
paneling.
Particle.
Yeah, yeah. The board.
Particle board. Yeah, no.
That's funny.
Yeah.
And these were not snap together models back in the day, by the way. These were the glue together, and
Yeah,
then
they
of course,
glue 'em.
and then you add
yeah.
fire. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah. Funny.
Something about the 80s that I think is really unique that a lot of people nowadays or younger might not understand is just how insane and a lot like we were allowed to do whatever. Like I try to remember back to my parents being around.
Yeah.
I don't remember that much. So all the stuff in these movies these kids did, I believe it. Like I believe that they
Right.
could do it
Yeah.
because nowadays I wouldn't believe it. I'd be like, no, that kid's got a cell phone. You could track him. But
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
not then.
Yeah.
So
No.
Hello
if
is-
you got a bike. If you got a bike, you're gone all day on your bike
exactly.
with your buds. Yeah.
Exactly. FP Sissa. I don't know who that is. Yo, hello. Welcome to the
Ooh.
Real Triad Reviews. We're reviewing a couple of movies here. Let me just get to it. Might as well. Over to the poster wall. We're reviewing Explorers, Enemy Mine, and The Last Starfighter. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how to get back to that one. There we go. A little bit more about Last Starfighter, and then we're gonna move along because it is sometimes when we go to the review these films, I go, oh, that there's not a lot of meaning behind The Last Starfighter. It's a fun movie, but what's the I guess we could find it if we wanted to dig, but I
Oh,
just
the-
don't think
the-
that
the-
there's going to be a ton of
Yeah,
deeper meaning
I
in that
think
movie.
What was it?
I think there always is.
The main character was Alex, right?
Yeah.
His name. Okay, so Alex,
Alex
you
Rogan.
know,
Rogan.
he knew he was meant for something better, and he was trying to get himself out of that town. And at first, he didn't trust that he could do what he could do, and you
Yeah.
know, there's that moment of realization that I need to do this. I have to do this. And then as soon as and of course, again, this is, story wasn't really written well to the point of where, he saves the day, everyone's defeated, and he goes back, and of course he has to help them rebuild. So
Yeah.
he makes that decision without any, like, consternation of any sort, but he's willing to, go and do that. And it's a fulfillment of, if you feel like you're meant to do something, then you can do it.
Yeah.
That's what I at least got out of it.
But he
Yeah,
was
and that-
he was supposed to go to community college. Maybe he should have just buckled down. I'm kidding, of course.
Well, no, he didn't want to go to community college. He wanted to go out of
Yeah,
state,
yeah.
away from college,
Right.
That's
and
right.
they couldn't get the
Yeah, yeah.
loan.
But if
So-
you have a beta unit,
Yeah.
don't you just send him to college and go fight in the starfighting anyway? Like,
but
that's
if
just-
you, but the moral of the story is, video games can give you a future.
I like that more. So let's hear Brian. What do you think of how the Last Starfighter lays out and the moral? What kind of story is it?
Yeah,
What's the imperative?
it's interesting. I mean, it's funny how movies, when you write a movie, you try to like throw in themes and you try to play along with those themes, but then a lot of times, what we naturally do as audiences is we interpret other themes into it ourselves, and I think it is this, like, he feels like he was meant to do something more, like he feels stuck, and there's always a moment in a film where the main protagonist refuses or denies what they're being called to do. There's like always a call to action. It's like Centauri literally is calling him to action in this film, and he's like, I don't know, and then he brings him back. So there's always this, like, refusal of the call, and so he comes back to him, and he has to have that moment of being like, okay, no, I need to really do this. And yeah, again, it's just this idea of, I mean, it's a really far-fetched thing, but that doesn't matter where we're from, that we can still do something greater. It's about being able to answer that call when we receive that call. Like, if that opportunity comes to us, are we going to have the courage enough to answer that and seek out that opportunity and become something better than we thought we could?
His brother
That's what
seems
it is
to
for me.
His brother seems to pick up on that too, and he goes nuts at the end trying to learn the game.
Right? Yeah. He's like, yeah. I love that when he's like screaming, like, in the ship.
Like, why not me?
Yeah.
What about the idea that the Death Blossom needed all that energy and they just they sat for a while and got enough? I know that there's some exposition that explains it, but sometimes these things,
Yeah.
I'm like, where did they get all the energy to do the super special move?
Right. Yeah.
They had a super special
that-
move. Did that bother you, Marvel?
They
Like the
did,
super
yeah.
special move? I think maybe.
Tell us what you really think.
I feel like we've had that trope ever since that movie. So you see it every so often, like, oh, what does this do? Don't push that button. Don't do that.
Mhm.
So it was kind of expected. I mean, I probably appreciated it more out of this film because it's probably where we got it from, or at least to date, a movie that I've seen where that's really been the case. But yeah, just whatever. Like it's like okay, we've taken way too much time with this movie. Let's go ahead and wrap it up now. Let's just push the button and let's get it over with. So
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, and I think we've seen it before too. Like it the first thing that pops in my head is like Iron Man 2, when he and War Machine are in that pit, whatever, and they're fighting all those other like bots that Hammer made, right? And then Tony whips out that last minute thing.
It's like, why didn't you lead with that?
He does that spin move.
yeah, he's like, why are you leaving that? He's like,
Exactly,
it's
why
only
did you
one
do
off.
that all the time?
It's one and done.
Yeah. So it's kind of
Yeah.
the same thing, yeah. But they had to like build up the power to do it. But yeah.
I think
It's
maybe
cool looking,
there's
you
a
know?
metaphor there. Like, Alex had to really
Right.
believe in himself enough for the Death Blossom to work.
Yeah, he just said, like he had to hang on
which works
just,
in like magic settings. So like fantasy settings, you have to like earn it. You know,
right.
this is why Spider-Man
Yeah.
lose his
Yeah.
powers in Spider-Man 2 is kind of lame
He
because you're
didn't-
like, but he
he-
got them. How does he lose them? Because he's having an anxiety-ridden day. Like I don't, I have my
Yeah.
problems.
Yeah.
He
yeah.
had to blow up enough ships to get to the special move. That's all it
Exactly,
was.
it's a video
That's right.
game
It's just
movie.
like the game. He had to-
Exactly. That being said, they
Yeah,
never made a
they're
Starfighter
working on a
game,
sequel.
and it made me mad that they never had the game that I could play all the
Yeah.
time. There were
know.
other games, but I don't remember there being a Starfighter game. I could be wrong, but I don't remember it.
Yeah, there might have been an Atari one, but back then,
Yeah, 80, 84, 85.
yeah.
Yeah, Nintendo wasn't quite up and like big yet, so maybe. But I don't know. For me, going back to the 80s, it's one of the ones that I always went to the rental store and got as many times as I could. I ran the tape out.
Right.
Oh, see, that was Aliens for me.
Oh yeah. Oh man.
I
Aliens.
tried to
Don't
catch
get
those
started.
things on Cinemax because my parents didn't want me watching those kinds of things. So we never had
Right.
the tapes of those things. So for me, it was always,
Yeah,
if I was
that's
visiting my
funny.
mom, you know, down in San Francisco, she had all the naughty channels. And so I would watch all the naughty stuff, whether it be, you know, the violent, gory stuff or the other, you know. So
That's a
speaking of
different
which,
show.
oh, sorry, that is a different
We'll
show.
talk about why your
Next.
mom had all the naughty channels later on, but
My mom followed the Grateful Dead for years, so that should say everything.
oh, there you go.
So the Last Starfighter for me still holds a special place. The reason I wanted to review it is I didn't know Marvelite hadn't had this, you know, this hang up. And I'm not saying it's bad, you know, I'm still going to assume you're going to rate it better than a 5 or 6, but still I know that you're.
Am I?
Oh, are you not? Oh no. Have we found a movie to
Oh,
rival
wait.
over? I'm
This
hoping
is.
so.
Oh my goodness. Maybe I shouldn't give my review.
No, you can like Ragnarok. It's okay. Anyway, we can both disagree. That's kind of the whole point of this.
Yeah. There's no hate.
No, never at
No.
all. But
I never expect everyone to love it.
no, and like you know, I do think an update of the CGI would be fantastic because they don't need to update
Right.
anything else except maybe the audio. Maybe put
Yeah.
a new layer of color on there if necessary.
Yeah.
But that's about it.
It was one of those. Yeah, and it was one of those films that had a hard time being made, you know, back
Mhm.
then. So, the fact that we even have it is like just a great thing. So, yeah, and then they've been working on a sequel for years. They've been battling rights over the scripts, everything, and but I think that's actually cleared up, and we may be seeing a sequel at
Well,
some point.
Both the main stars have been seen at a lot of Comic Cons in the last couple of years, so I think there's a
Right.
lead up. That's
Yeah.
Comic Con to me always kind of says that's the press tour, not all of it, but
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
a big part of the press tour, whether we want to believe it or not.
Yeah,
If you
get the
watch
word
the
of mouth out there.
right, if you watch the lineup of things at Comic Con versus what's being released, it's usually right on par.
Mhm.
So
Right.
it's a good way for us to pay attention, and even be involved. So we rate things a little differently on this show, Brian. We go with
Yeah.
two ratings. So it's one of what you would rate it now as a fresh watch, and then what you would
Mhm.
rate it if you were, say, 12 years old again, if you got to see it at
Oh,
12 years
yeah.
old again. And we
Right.
like to give both, and usually in that order. Would you agree, Marvelite? We do it in that order. You're nodding. Okay.
So today's rating, and then as the 12-year-old rating.
Yeah, here I'll do it. I'll do it first. Though we would
Okay.
I'll get the ball
Yeah, yeah.
rolling. So
Gotcha.
if I watch the film now, it has a little cheese. The pacing's a little odd in places. It does. I do agree with Marvelite that that call to action feels like it either should have had a sequel where we get to see the whole call to action, or it should have happened earlier. The whole beta unit thing, as much as I like the beta unit, could probably be removed in order to change the pacing, and I think that might have worked a little better. I give it an 8 because I still think
Yeah.
it has a lot of good heart, and I think it has a great message. But as a 12-year-old, it's a 10. I loved it as a kid. I'm not going to lie. Everything I'm talking about tonight is a 10 for my 12-year-old self. I'll just get that out of the way.
Right. Yeah.
Marvelette, you want to go last on this one? It feels like you're
Yes,
waiting.
please.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Brian. What do you rate it?
So I have one thing to say about the beta thing. I love that in there. Like I feel like it's almost like how Alex really wants to be in
Hmm.
many ways. Like this is a different personality, a different side of Alex that he never gets to be. Like he's more free and or whatnot. But anyway, so for me, yeah, I'd say it's a 7 to an 8 now rewatch, and then the 12-year-old me is it's a 10 for sure.
Nice,
So.
nice. All right.
The fact that you would want to take points off Snitty for or a downside for you is Beta. I actually think that that was probably the only vehicle that really gave a good explanation as to what was going on. And of course, the female love interest is the one who probably knew more than Alex did in the entire film because he told her what was going on. Um, I I with that said, I'm gonna give it some positive points for the fact that it was very ambitious for doing CGI. It was funny though because I was sitting there and I'm laughing, and I watched this as a kid, and as a kid I was just like, nope. And I probably changed the channel on it because I probably watched it on television,
Oh,
and
no.
That's
like
funny.
it probably drew me in for the CGI. But
Mm.
now looking back on it, it's like they could do like the CGI of like that whole polygonal looking space movement and whatnot. But of course, I thought the funniest thing was the base where there's all of this bustling and movement going on that it was like completely unmanned whenever the ship had to come in because they could not render people. And I almost wish they would have.
Yeah. So,
But it wasn't a very clear and concise plot. You really didn't get any depth with a lot of the characters. I think uh, the most emotional pull out of the whole thing was Centauri dying, and of course they had to ruin that part. Spoiler alert: if you haven't watched it in 30 years,
I can always put the
um,
spoiler up. So your camera's doing it again.
well, it's not me. I'm looking fine.
Will you just like wave at the camera? No. Okay, there we go. There we go. There it goes. I fixed it.
Okay. All right. So as an adult, I'm not going to go more than like a 5.
Ouch.
I'll give it. And that's highballing it because honestly, I will never watch this film, and the dread that I have that I may have to eventually watch a sequel because of this channel. I'm just saying, I have enough to request another movie, and I'm going to go for one that you're going to hate if I can.
I know. That's the whole point.
But I'm not. But honestly, like I just had no interest, and it's even lower as a kid. Like as an adult, I'm trying to appreciate the film as it is. As a kid, I would have been. I did this. Nope. So it was probably a 1 or a. I'd probably give you. I'll be high. I'll give you a 2 for as a 12-year-old because things like Star Wars were out, and I wasn't really interested. I was the Willow and the Legend and and all of that stuff. Like that was my jam, and I was huge on He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. So that's what I went for, and I didn't get into the whole space stuff until later, and this was one of the least favorite films I ever attempted to watch as a kid. So, but that's doesn't say
Muncie.
that you guys don't have a right to like it. It's just that it didn't work for me. Yo, Muncie.
Just wanted to point out that he's here.
Oh yeah. As a reference,
my camera again.
Rotten Tomatoes has it at a 76%, and the audience score is 69%.
See, that makes sense. It's usually the ones that are flipped like that I tend to like. The audience hates it, and the critics are okay on it.
That's funny.
The ones that get like a 4-star on Voodoo, if you will, because they use a very similar system. 4-star from the community versus the 5-star from the critics. I usually hate them because the community, I don't know, usually I don't know. What's up, Muncie? We're talking about old 80s flicks, and we just got our hearts crushed and stepped all over, but we're okay.
Oh please.
We're okay. We're making it.
No one can destroy.
You'll watch it again.
No one can destroy that movie for me. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, and it's okay.
Yeah.
It's and I'm it's very rare that you find a film that I just can't watch. But I have to rent this up there with cats.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Damn.
Ouch. Okay. Wait, what?
Funny how? I mean,
like what? Like really? Like really? Oh.
Right.
I mean,
I fell asleep at Cats. I don't know.
The CGI from Last Starfighter and the lack of a butthole with Judi Dench, you know.
Oh, switch off. Oh, switch off.
Same
Anyway,
energy for you there.
So let's move on to a different movie that we won't have thrash. Why don't we move to Enemy Mine next? That is a very visceral film in comparison. This to me felt like the darker side of the Star Wars universe found its way to film. Like what would happen if an X-wing pilot veered off with some other species and kind of things got weird. The acting in this movie is great on one side and really bad on the other. I think that Louis Gossett Jr. deserves a huge thumbs up for his performance in this film.
Oh, yeah.
I think Dennis
Absolutely.
With all that
Quaid.
makeup on.
Dennis Quaid, I think, got lost in this role and became another character in a good way because he's supposed to change, but in a way that it was hard for me to believe him after they became close. I don't know. That's just me. But I love this film. This is a film I grew up with, just like the other ones we're talking about.
Right.
My dad showed me this film. He was like, "This is gritty." And of course, my dad loved war, not loved war, but was a part of war and loved the military and loved all that. So he always wanted me to watch these grittier films. The pit always reminds me of the Zarlak pit and what it would be like if you got close to one for real. Lando got lucky that this isn't what happens to your leg. Just saying.
Oh my goodness.
And I love the critters. The practical effects in this film are what's on point. It almost feels like the movie from Explorers that you see a couple of times. I know it's not War of the Worlds, but it looks as bad as the Picardo scenes. Anyway,
yeah.
I digress.
What would mankind do to an alien race?
Yeah, the Picardo scenes.
Well, because he plays two roles in Explorers. He plays both Whack and he plays the captain in the complete Star Trek, Star Wars ripoff. Like, it's Star Wars to a T. Anyway, we'll get to Explorers. So, Enemy Mine. I'm trying to do the setup here where, it is a good movie, but it takes a bit for the setup because it almost feels like the pacing of, like not a great Kubrick film, but paced in that way where it's slow but janky. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you really know nothing about the characters or about what's really going on in the conflict until you kind of get to know the characters a little bit more in personal as they're knowing each other, which was kind of nice because you kind of understood the characters as they understood each other. And I think that was the whole purpose of the film. I'm kind of jumping the gun with this, and I'm sorry because it's like this is so I we were talking about this offline a while back when we decided to do this film, and Mr. Snippets and I both kind of came to the agreement that as much as we don't like them remaking films, it would almost be nice for them to do a remake of this film because I think this film touches on a lot of really important topics that really do apply for today. We talked about Last Starfighter doesn't really age well. Enemy Mine ages really well when you consider, we're talking about, it's like bigotry and racism. But then you have, David kind of coming to terms with what Drax, his physiology is. And so you really have this effect that, this film helped prepare people for more. It's why I feel like sometimes like you have like in our generation, your ancestors may have had bad ties and may have had, a history of, let's say, prejudice and everything else. And then in the 80s, there was like this resurgence of individuals that kind of were more accepting and more understanding. I think it plays very well to films like this, where it helped teach a very important, idea that we are very different, but we are very much the same. And it's really about getting to know and understand each other. And I think that's part of the reason why this film has always stuck well with me, is because it wasn't about the action, it wasn't about the creatures, it wasn't about anything else except for Drac and David. And when you get that that relationship between the two of them, and then you see what happens later on with Drac's child, and how David basically goes against his own people to go and try to make things right, and he's the catalyst. And it's not because he's a good guy, it's because his interaction with Drac made him the good guy. And that idea that an individual that can be so gun ho in one area or one idea can change is what's most phenomenal about this film. And it's part of the reason why it's so important. Like in my childhood, I remember, my mom just laying on the couch and me watching this film over and over and over again, and it just stuck with me. So.
Well, and it should. I mean, if you think about it, this movie goes over, as you were saying, not just, bigotry and racism or even speciesism, if you want to get real specific, but there's an element of religion and the fact that they have a different religion. Drac's religion is very in depth and looks a lot like Vulcan if you look at the actual, writing. But of course, our religion in that film is, of course, Disney. And Mickey Mouse is our guy, which I think is hilarious. I love that they had a little levity in there, even though it was subtle.
Yeah.
And then of course we get into gender roles very specifically, as you were saying, and then we get into even elements of trans rights and trans people existing and still being okay. There's a lot to it. And then roots. You'd kind of mentioned that, but the roots of finding your family. Because he doesn't know that he, isn't human. The kid assumes he's human. Anyway, I agree.
Right.
I just really had to touch on that. But it's a brilliant film.
No, totally.
And with some brilliant actors. The guy that plays Stubbs, Brian James from the Blade Runner movie. And of course, Quaid, who can be good, but can also be really bad. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Brian, I want to hear your thoughts.
I mean, I'm just going to echo. I mean, Marvel, you said it really well. I mean, both you guys nailed on a lot of things, and it's difficult, to have. Basically, they're both like protagonists in this film. Not a single one of them. They're both protagonists and they're antagonists to each other, and they both have to fight. They both have to change, and kind of become better versions of themselves than when we first meet them, and it's a lot of like cultural like tolerance, like talking about and learning about each other's culture. I think that's like, Marvel, you mentioned that they realize that despite all the differences they might have, there still is like a lot of things that make them very much the same and things that they can unite behind, like family, and what does that mean, and I think it's really something that it was visceral in that it spoke about so many, like social issues at the time, and like you're a kid when you're watching this, you're not really like that's not really in the forefront of your mind at the time, but then like here we are now talking about it, and it totally would be fitting to have an enemy mine. Like, I think it'd be cool to like see an Enemy Mine like TV series or something. That'd be
okay.
Great.
Oh yeah.
But
okay, so it needs to be on the Sci-Fi Channel, and of course they need a showrunner and somebody with brains. Right. No offense to Sci-Fi, but they make very shoddy stuff.
Sharknado.
They kind of.
They just need. I want a channel in which we know that we can hear. So anyway, so you're right. An Enemy Mine show followed by Alien Nation, because that's another show. That's another show.
That was a great film. And
Muncie says we definitely need movies that touch on religion and culture. It's a separated topic. Well, not always. If you look at every film, and this is something that this was just kind of shown with Last Starfighter. You can look at film in multiple levels. If you skim the surface of any movie, you're going to just enjoy it as a roller coaster or just as a ride. And you're going to see a few tones and things that make sense.
That's fine,
Right. But then there's layer 2 where you can start to peel back the layers and start to understand each character. Layer 3, you start to actually peel back the whole story and see how it's built and structured. And then you can even go further. And I can promise you that everybody sitting here on this review tonight can go to the 4th layer and start peeling back the way shots are and what they mean and why they make you feel the way they feel and why the lighting matters and all these things. And there's probably a 5th layer, but I'm not that nerdy. Somebody can elaborate on that 5th layer. That's just me. That got me going on that topic, because that you can get religion out of every layer, I think, one way or another. Anyway, I
Yeah,
digress.
And I
and-
think what was great about this film was I don't think they really intended to go that far.
Right.
Because if you remember, like with the '80s, like at a certain point, it was like we had Roots come out, and we had a bunch of films that kind of touched on prejudice, and I mean when you look at this film, it was probably trying to touch more on racism than anything else, but they didn't realize they went down the rabbit hole, and
right.
because they weren't trying to hit all of these different points, they did it perfectly without
Mhm.
trying.
I like that.
And I think that was what was nice about it, was because it was kind of autonomous in its own I don't want to say wokeness, because it wasn't really trying to be woke. It was just trying to be trying to
Yeah.
bring people together, and it just did it in a really nice way. So
It was progressive in its own way.
yeah.
And a lot of times that, like I mentioned before, like when we talk about themes and that they try to put in, a lot of times we interpret themes differently than what the filmmaker may have, at first intended to put in there. I'm sure they like you had mentioned, they were trying to go for this, like, let's talk about a message of like intolerance. Oh, my light just went out. A message of intolerance, and which can be connected to all those things that we just talked about, like, and I think upon multiple viewings, you start to like really see, oh, there's much more here, and you start to interpret it a little differently, with each watch. So it's just great that they can able. It's this film from 1985 that still kind of has resonance today.
And not a lot of films can do that. A lot of films just
No.
fall away, and you watch them, and you're like, "Why did that was funny? Somebody liked that? Okay."
Yeah.
I
You
get that
kinda just
from
forget it.
right.
Like-
Half the films I own, I feel that way about. I go back and go, "Wait, oh, that's right, I have that movie," and I'll never watch
Right.
that again.
Well, it was like the scene where in the mine, when he's talking to the slaves, they immediately treated him as one of the slave, like the slave masters, and
Right.
as soon as he started speaking to them in their tongue and they realized who he was, you could tell the demeanor changed, because this was an individual that they understood respected them, and like they were told
Yeah.
that there was this human that was different than the rest, and they didn't believe the kid, but the kid told them nonetheless, and so they were just they there was no question about rallying with him, and I don't know, I just felt like there is this opportunity that we have that comes from this film, where it's the understanding that you don't have to agree with anybody's way of life. You don't have to.
Mhm.
There's no requirement for you to agree with someone, but to give that person respect is 100% necessary to be a decent human being. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, like this movie kind of shows, we can, and even with Explorers, when you look at it, when the outside looks at us, we are oftentimes the monsters that we think we're fighting against.
Yeah.
That's a
Right.
great segue.
Mhm.
No, I agree. This movie does show you at the end. This is a lot of the heartbreak I remember as a kid going, humans suck. And a lot of movies showed me that when I was a kid. And it was the one truth I pulled from
Yeah.
almost every movie. People are always like, oh, you believe what you see in movies? I'm like, yeah, I learned a lot about how much humans suck in movies.
You can. Yeah.
And what happened was we learned our lesson, and then we got Independence Day, where we tried to reach out and be peaceful, and they blew us up. So
Yeah. The
Hollywood
other
just
side of the
doesn't
coin.
want us to be off. He wants us to be off kilter.
E.T., the giant, lovely 10 million year old mushroom, tells me there's kind life out there.
Yeah.
So, sorry, that's from the book adaptation, but still true.
Oh.
It's canon. He is a mushroom.
Yep.
And a
ET is
senator.
canon for Star Wars. So
Yep, he is a
that's the thing.
senator as well. So Muncie says, true, you can find religion in every movie if you peel back the layers, like an onion. But I mean, we need movies where the layer that dives into religion is closer to the surface. Yeah, they have a whole series of movies called God's Not Dead. You can go to first surface religious movies.
Yeah. No.
but
Totally.
That's a different channel. I digress. I'd say if you want to talk about politics and religion when it comes to film with us, or at least with me, third layer back possibly, where it's there and it's discussed, but we're not going to get into the nitty gritty of belief or anything like that. That's just me. Mostly because we're forward facing, we're on the internet side of things and talking to the world. So, I have my private views, and then I have the fact that we're going to review movies. So, but I get your point. point well seen, if you will. That said,
There's definitely a place for those type of films for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, and we can have even nights where it's set aside where people are warned that that
Right.
politics and religion are a very very hard thing for people to discuss, at least
Yeah.
for
yeah.
people that I've met, and I know some people can do it, some people can't. I can in the right settings, but again, right settings. So that being said, it's 80s sci-fi night. We are discussing some heavier topics. It was interesting when they tried to teach each other the language, and I love that the name it stuck out in my head my whole life. I still say Darwich, like it still
Oh, funny.
runs in my head like a couple of lines from several movies, and
Oh, wow. Yeah.
it's weird. Louis Gossett Jr. was so amazing in the 80s, and then he just vanished. He just doesn't do movies
Yeah.
anymore.
I know. Yeah. There's a great many Louis Gossett Jr. films around that time, and then we haven't really seen much for a while. So
Yeah, that and Iron Eagle. And that's about it at the
Iron
time.
Eagle, yeah.
Yeah.
Officer and Gentleman.
Marvelite, why don't you rate this up? Let's get a rating on Enemy Mine, and then if you have more, I think your breakdown has been fantastic. I've just been listening rather than.
Oh yeah, no, it's fine. So again, like I said, like Enemy Mine, literally, of all the films that I watched as a child, it has had the most impact on me, and it's mainly because I don't know what it was about the 80s and early 90s. This film was on television over and over and over and over
It
again.
was. Right.
And honestly, I sat and watched it every single time. And the one thing I love about, I think, watching things on television, like on cable or like on like the regular like channels, has always been that when you watch a film, you always know you're watching with other people, and I've loved that. It's the one thing about binging films and stuff like that. I think that's why they push for watch parties now, is because you at least knew other people were watching it with you. And when you went to school the next day, or when you were talking to family, they were probably watching it too, and then you were talking about it. And for Enemy Mine, it was one of those things where it wasn't it was never the sci-fi like aspect, or it was never like the special effects that always got me. It was literally Davidge and Drac. Those two made the film. And then when Drac had the child, um I instantly loved that child, and knowing the need for Davidge to go back for that child, and when that child knew that Davidge was coming back for him, that was crucial. That was crucial, and for me, I think, because I grew up in a single parent home. I had my mom. I didn't have a dad, but I saw that dad in Davidge, and he was very much of a parallel to my uncle, who was that father figure for me. And this film did teach me, as much as a kid you look at it and you think, oh, it's a fun film. I remember being just outraged at how the Dracs were being treated, and how the humans were really just they were apathetic. It was a part of a war. It was not concerning. Not saying that there is a group or an organization of people that are out nowadays that do not care about other people, regardless of where they're from, and are not concerned with learning other people's cultures and being. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be political. And Snippets knows I'm very conservative in my political views, but I am tired of us living in a world where the people who make the decisions do not care about the people that those decisions affect.
Fair point.
And that was the essence of that film. The humans didn't realize what they were going to war against, and the Dracs were. I felt like the Dracs were more on the defensive, and to see what you didn't see David having to later on liberate a Drax camp that had humans as slaves. No, the Dracs were the slaves.
Right.
And so for me, this film
I take that as the norm, by the way. That's not just from that planet. That's everywhere. And if you listen to the intro dialogue of the film, they talk about how we finally get along as humans and we get past all of our differences, and then we go to space and do the same thing to aliens.
You're right. It's colonialism just follows you everywhere.
It does.
It's at some point, and then this is where the thing is I'm not necessarily one of those individuals that believe that there's really life out there. I I don't know what we would ever find in space. But I will say this: if there is life out in space and it's looking at us, I know why we haven't seen it yet, or at least why the biggest redneck country hicks have been the ones that have seen it, because we are a threat. We are a threat to our own selves, and we'll get on that in Explorers. And if we can't get along amongst ourselves, we're never going to get along with anyone outside farther than that. And
Yeah, so they're like, why bother? You know, they're
yeah,
like,
and if anything,
yeah.
Trump is a lizard person that came up with the idea of Space Force, said that we won't accept it later on. But you get to this point where, you know, I digress. I'm gonna go back. The film really did really did, like, you know, help sculpt me into understanding and accepting and under, you know, really coming to the terms of, like, you know, yes, this is fiction, but we could do better.
Do you see what
We
Marcy
could
said?
do better, and this is too too much. This is too much close to what we really are like.
Right.
Mhm.
And people are like, well, it's fiction. It's like, go back and look the last couple hundred years.
It's like,
what humans have done.
right. I mean, that's the, for me, that's always been like the big point of movies, though, is to shine a mirror on, you know, the really great films that are actually trying to, you know, yeah, you got your, like, you know, we mentioned that your popcorn flicks that really just there for fun. You do have movies that are trying to, like, shine a mirror on us as a society and
Mm-hmm.
really try to help us to be better. And Marvel, you made a really great point about, like, when you were a kid, you instinctively knew that this was wrong, that was what the humans were doing was wrong. And I feel like that's something, just as kids, we all kind of, like, just being innocent kids, we know, you know, just intuitively, like, what is going on here? This is not right. I don't, like, I don't feel like I would ever do that, you know what I mean? So I think,
Or have
and
it
then
done to me.
another
I
funny
wouldn't like
thing,
having it done
yeah,
to me
exactly.
either.
I wouldn't want to, yeah. So why? Yeah, I don't want to do that to other people just because they're different. And it's like another thing too that I found interesting in this whole conversation just about this film. It's almost a 180 about from Last Starfighter, where we focus a lot about the sci-fi in
Mhm.
Last Starfighter and then the effects and everything. Like this one, we've only focused on, like, what this film was trying to say, you know, the themes and everything, and like these two characters mainly. And I think I just found that really interesting.
Well, even the
That,
poster,
I mean,
the
the effects weren't
poster
really that great.
says a lot about
Yeah.
this film, and it's
Oh,
that
totally,
poster
yeah, it's
sticks
like,
out. Like they didn't change it
right,
like they do other posters. It's just them,
yeah,
and it's interesting because in the scene, Quaid is actually looking up at him a lot more, but on the poster, they equalized
right.
them a
They're
little
like,
bit more. It was really interesting that
yeah,
they chose to
yeah,
do that.
Yep.
sure.
So we do have the pre-review loaded and ready. I would not mind having a 3-minute break, which is about all we'll get. So if you guys want to take a moment, we will be watching the pre-review with Sean. These are the movies coming out over the next week, both in theaters and in streaming. So check this out, and we'll be right back.
Triad listeners, I'm Sean, and I'm back with this week's pre-review of the things coming to theaters and streaming this week. This week, new to theaters, we're going to get James Gunn's Suicide Squad. It already has like a 97% rating on Rotten Tomatoes from the reviewers. I cannot wait to see this because I get to watch it on HBO Max, and I got an email today that it will be available on HBO Max August 5th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, so I'm definitely looking forward to that. Also in theaters, I found a strange movie called 645. It's one of those psychological thriller movies. I'm totally want to see this. It looks really good. This week on Netflix, we have a show called Beckett. John David Washington returns to give us an action-packed thriller that it looks great. I mean, look who the guy's father is. Of course, he's going to do amazing work, and he has lived up to that, and this looks just so good. Also, Netflix brings us Hit and Run, which looks like a total revenge movie. It's one of those where somebody did somebody wrong, and they are out for blood. So those are always fun. A few weeks ago, there was the release of the documentary Val, and now that will be available on Amazon Prime August 6th. That is the life and times of Val Kilmer. And I tell you, I enjoy his acting, And so this documentary, just from the preview, gives me something that I really want to watch. Like I said, guys, this week's pickings are pretty bare when it comes to what's coming out. But thanks for listening to the Real Triads, and I hope y'all have a good one.
All right, and we're back. That was a very short pause. I'm glad I got back in time. Being that was such a short pause, I'm a little disoriented.
Sorry, you want us to go ahead and do our scores for the
Score it up, yes, and
Yeah.
we'll move on. Go for it.
Okay. All right. So you know what? All the movie things. Why don't you go ahead and go first?
All right. So we'll go with my today score. I'd say this is about an 8 for me. But the kid version is actually a little bit lower. I probably is like a 6 or a 7. The 12-year-old version for me. Like I just appreciate it much more being an adult, you know, just because of like everything we've talked about. So
That makes sense.
that's my take. Yeah.
I like your take. Marvelite, what's your take?
So it's kind of funny because whereas the Last Starfighter really didn't age well, especially for me, I will say. Well, let's face it, I didn't like it then. I okay, but anyway, yeah, I digress.
I think we found a movie that Marvelite doesn't like.
So I think what was interesting was this movie actually aged really well, and with the I think what was really interesting was like it didn't focus on like sci-fi tech as much.
Right.
You know, we ended up getting these guys on the ground and they're on this alien planet and they're trying to deal with each other. And yes, there were references that do still hold to today. You know, the whole Mickey Mouse and everything else, like that was like Disney. That, let's face it, if that didn't hit well back then, it hits even better back now, to this point. It touched on a lot of topics, and maybe at the time I wouldn't have said, you know, wow, this is a really deep film, but it really did help mold me as a kid. So I'm gonna say personally, looking at this film, I'm gonna look at it now. Yes, it's an older film. We've seen better technology for certain things. Dennis Quaid's acting wasn't like 100% in this, and honestly, I feel like you know, he shouldn't have been the head runner on this, but I get why. You know, we were doing great things with this film, but we weren't everywhere we needed to be. So I probably give this an 8 now still. Back then, I love this film. This was more important to me, and again, I was still getting into like science fiction, space films. So as a 12-year-old, I'd give this like a 9 or a 10 because this was better than Star Wars for me for a while.
Wow.
Okay. And then I've come to appreciate Star Wars. But this was my first foray into real space science fiction. So
cool.
So like they say 8 or 9 today, a 9 or 10 back then. So
right.
All right.
Nice.
I respect that.
Yeah.
I do agree that the adult me appreciates this film a lot more than the child me did, mostly because the pacing, like I said, it's slow. It's got a human element, and that meaning that you have to understand the characters. And when I was younger, I wanted the characters to run after each other and shoot each other and explode and throw one-liners, you know, and that's nothing against the MCU. Oh, sorry. So I'm just saying, they're roller coaster movies, most of them, you know, not all of them, but they're supposed to be fun, and that's okay. And that's what they're for. But this movie hits differently. So, and I'm sure we could pick a handful of MCU movies that hit like this one does, where it goes a little deeper, it roots itself a little further. So that's not a slight against the 23 films, but I promise you that Ant-Man and Wasp was not very deep. And it's, you know, so like we can all agree that that is like one of the lowest tier MCU movies that there are. It's the only good thing we got out of that was Lawrence Fishburne. That's just me. So moving past that, this movie, when I was young, I found it intriguing and interesting. And again, I'm going to go back to the Zarlak pit. I really liked that pit, and that, you know, the way that it was showed the danger of this entire planet without having to have a huge set. It's always clever in my mind. The armadillo style roly polies that can't roly was fantastic. The way they killed them, they made the hut out of them. So for me, I still go back to a lot of these special effects. Like they're visceral and they stick with me. And we said that earlier. So for that, I got to give it better score than I might have when I was younger for special effects, which I don't normally like parse this out, but I'm going to give it like a 10 for special effects, which most movies in the 80s don't hold up as well. So I really love that they could touch everything. I guess the electricity that goes through Quaid's
was great.
Oh, they really were. And they reminded me
the creature effect.
Right. They reminded me of Wrath of Khan with the earwig thing that goes in and it creeped me out. Still gets me to this day. They remind me of the thing.
Yeah.
So I think having this feeling that they were in danger all the time and that Louis Gossett looked kind of similar to the types of creatures we were seeing that would be hard for a human. And I was always creeped out on that planet. And then, you're right. The switch, once the kid is born, I'm like, oh, what a cute little weird thing. And I love it. And so even as a kid, I loved it. I would strangely give this like an 8. So 9 now, 8 then, with a 10 for special effects.
Yeah. Nice.
That's me.
Yeah.
I
just
love
again
when Drac called him ugly.
Yeah.
You're ugly.
Okay. The way I wonder if he must have had a hard time trying to speak
with that beak tooth looking
well,
mouth.
The prosthetic sits further away. They left his mouth alone completely, so you can almost see where you could put your finger up under the prosthetic.
Right. Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. That for him, he acted that like you could tell. The way he sounded made sense with that mouth.
It did.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I like their heads too. How they're like long, elongated heads. Muncie says that he gives it a strong 8, and as a kid, a 6. Cool. Okay, fair.
Yes, he also agreed on the Ant-Man and the Wasp, but you're on thin ice, pal.
I'm on thin ice. So let's get this out of the way. I have very strong opinions about movies, and I'm going to thrash on movies you like. There, let's move on. Okay.
If you've liked Snidbits this entire time, up to this point, just remember, Mr. Snidbits is a person that is not on drugs anymore. So,
and I thought that Gunpowder Milkshake was pretty. Anyway,
have you gone back and watched it since you?
I can't even get past the poster now, but that's beside the point. So. I will. I'm trying to watch other things. I'm still supposed to be doing a supernatural thing. Anyway, that's an aside. So, did we hear?
Just real quick as a fun reference, the Rotten Tomatoes mine is actually 63% critic and 68% audience. So,
interesting.
Pretty equal. Yeah.
Interesting. I think the critics would have loved this a lot more.
Right. Yeah. And I wonder how far back. I don't know what Rotten Tomatoes uses.
It's true. They would have to go back and dig through those newspapers.
Right.
This would have been Siskel and Ebert back in the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And they would have been in their early days, at least on TV and such. I'm sure they were in the Chicago Tribune for much longer than that. But anyway.
Oh yeah.
I wasn't a follower of critics. Still not.
I had the book of Siskel and Ebert for a while.
Oh, speaking of books. Okay. So thank you for that. I've been waiting for this. Okay, so before IMDb, which is the Internet Movie Database for the viewers that might not know what that is, that's where you go. Okay, you can go to a lot of different websites, but if you want to know, go to IMDb. Now, that said, before IMDb was a big thing, and this is probably circa 2005 and before, there was a book that we would all buy called The Video Hound, and it was about that big, and it had all the same stuff IMDb has, including bones on how much things were rated, and you could do the same fun games where you could literally find an actor, track down all their movies, and go, who else is in that movie, and then track them down. Right. And so on. It was like a choose your own adventure movie dictionary. Anyway.
Yes.
I love that thing. I miss them. I used to collect them every year. I had a stack of them. I'm glad I don't have them anymore. Take up a whole closet, but
you really only need the last year's book.
True.
Right.
True.
Because at that point, it's got everything. You don't need to keep the previous year book.
And that's why IMDb is winning
Yeah.
because it gets updated on a server and it makes much more sense. Speaking of which, so we're actually ahead of schedule. We usually devote about a half an hour to each film. We've got an extra 20 minutes here, so I actually want to do something a little different, and let's see if we can do this. So this is called the movie game, and I've been wanting to do this for a while just to practice. And this is something you have to, luckily we can have you put your hands up and I can see them in the actual video, so I know you guys aren't going on the phone and cheating. But the movie game is just the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but we take Kevin Bacon out of the equation, and I mean we can use him. He's not a wild card or anything, but he's there. And it's all about film actor. Okay, so let me explain a little bit more.
Okay.
So I'll name an actor, okay, and then I'll name a role or a film that they've been in. In order to advance to the next step, Brian will have to name an actor from that film that is not the same actor, but a different one. And then a whole nother movie that can't be a repeat. So we cannot repeat ourselves. The whole point is to not repeat yourself. And we'll see if we can go around. If you get to a point where you can't think of one, because it is a bit of a memory game, it is a pass, and we'll just see who gets eliminated until one's left. And that's the easiest, fastest way to play this game.
I feel like I'm going to have a problem with this game.
And it's meant to help you practice with names. So this is a great way if you're a movie person. Yeah, this helps you. So we can do this with, there are varying layers of difficulty. So you start with actors because they're the most prevalent. And then we can layer in, you can add director, you can add writer, composer, and like Brian's like, oh dude, we get into DPs, man. We can get crazy. So like, we can get wild. So let's start with actors because it's the easiest, the most well-known. And again, no repeats. The big trick is we all win if we can get the same actor through the same movie that starts the round, if that makes any sense. So let's try this. So
it's good.
Because we're doing an 80s night, I'm going to do it like this. Tom Cruise, Top Gun, and Brian, because you're to my left, you're next.
Okay. So I have to name another Tom Cruise movie.
Nope, another Top Gun actor. I'm glad we
Top
clarified
Gun
that.
actor.
Yep.
Oh, okay, gotcha. All right. Oh man.
On the spot. Don't worry about it. Just breathe through it. Just breathe through it.
All right. Val Kilmer. Real Genius.
There you go.
Oh dang.
That one's hard. Yeah. I'm sorry. Like that's all I remember from that movie.
Do you know how long it's been since I've seen Real Genius?
Man, probably
oh my goodness.
as long as me.
The popcorn scene.
I can't think of a single actor or actress in that film.
That's on me. I'm sorry, like because I'm right there with you.
I was sitting there like when you said Val Kilmer, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, like I've got a chance, and then.
All right.
Are we trying to keep it to 80s?
Oh hey, Commander Crossheart. Thank you for stopping by. We're playing the movie game. All right, Brian. Since you stumped us,
you both are.
No. Since Brian stumped us, we're going to let him go first. We're going to call that Brian wins if we're going for stumping, or I win because I stumped him, I guess. Again, this is a loose game. It's just for fun. So, go ahead, Brian. Name an actor and then a movie they were in, and just go. There's no right place to start.
Gotcha.
But consider your competition and what we may or may not know.
Okay. Denzel Washington, Philadelphia.
Ooh.
I can give you a couple of chances.
Sip as you go.
All right, so Marvelite passes. I'm going to go ahead and take this. It's Tom Hanks, and we're going to say, oh boy, there's so many.
I know.
And ones that are coming to my head don't have anybody else in them. It's always the way it works. Let's see. Let's test. Let's test them. Turner and Hooch.
Oh,
you suck.
Yeah.
See, if we had a moderator, they could verify and like have rules. Like we could have this be a thing. Like, I think this could be a half an hour of fun. But anyway, go ahead.
Is that to me?
That is to you.
Okay, yeah, I'm at the pass.
Turner and Hooch to you.
Oh, please.
Yeah.
Turner and Hooch to Marvel.
Oh my
Man,
goodness.
you got it.
I have no stinking idea about any of this. I've seen the film. I've watched it multiple times,
Oh yeah.
but I
Mhm.
can't think of a single actor.
Not even the dog's name.
No. I
No.
was gonna be like Gooch, but I'm like, I don't even know that. I don't even know what else that dog has been in. I almost thought for a second that maybe it was in Sandlost,
Right.
but nope.
I'm wondering if that
Uh,
dog's even alive anymore. That's sad, but anyway, moving on. You got nothing? Is that is the video
Will is
frozen? Okay, no, he's there. Okay. Just
Question that
checking.
dog's not alive.
I'm trying to
Thank
look it
you
up on
guys
my
so much
phone.
for coming. I'm gonna go ahead and leave now.
No, stay,
No.
stay.
Tony's
That's a
leaving
tough.
the chat.
That's a tough one. Both those were tough. Like,
Okay, that's fine.
But it
It's
doesn't
still
matter. The 80s was a time where I didn't care about the name of people.
right.
so you passed then.
I pass. I'm looking people's up now.
Okay,
People up
so
right now.
so that we'll have to give 2 to Brian now. Two. Well, no, 1 to me, 1 to Brian. So Marvel,
Yeah,
you
one
can
to
just
you.
start us
Yeah,
off.
yeah.
Name an
There you
actor
go.
and a movie they've been in.
And we're sticking with the 80s, right?
No. That was just I did that as a good start because it's
Yeah,
the
because
80s.
Philadelphia wasn't in the 80s.
Yeah, that's early 90s. So
Yeah, those 90s.
Are you serious? Because okay, we're not gonna.
No,
go-
I thought
okay.
it was supposed to be 80s too. So that's for the first time I was like, real genius.
thanks for the heads up, Muncie.
Okay. How about we go with okay? Well, let's go a little bit crazy here. Betty White, Lake Placid.
Lake Placid, the movie where they
Oh, no.
named the critter
Oh.
after the lake instead of the actual.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
Oh,
I got you.
man.
I got you. Since it's me, here we go. Oliver Platt,
A good one. Yeah. Dang.
and we'll go Bicentennial Man.
Okay. Okay. Robin Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Mrs. Doubtfire.
Okay, Tony, you got this.
Keep it
Tony, you
going.
got this. You
Yeah.
got this.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
trying to think of the
You got
names
it.
down. Okay, hold on.
Yeah. Keep track.
I'm trying to think of what his name is now.
I could hum a theme song that would help.
No, I'm
Right?
I'm trying to think of the name of the actor because I know the name of the actor. I just, for whatever reason, it's kind of going out. Is it Timothy?
Nope, but close.
Oh.
You're in the right vein. You're in the right theme song.
Well, yeah, I get that part, but I'm trying to think of what's the guy's name?
So you hear the theme song. Okay, I'm glad you hear it.
Well, I don't know if you're thinking like a Lion King theme song or you're going to like the producers because those are 2 that are going in my head right now.
Neither. We're not on the same page. Okay.
Neither.
Neither.
We're not on the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
page.
I think
Um,
Brian and I are on the same page.
Yeah.
I'm trying to,
Yeah,
like, I can't. Why am I going through that? Mrs. Doubtfire. Okay, hold on a second.
Mhm.
The names.
Would you like some initials?
Ain't gonna help me.
It might.
Go ahead, try.
Okay.
Try.
Might, yeah.
First initial is P.
Mhm.
Last initial is B.
Papa Bravo.
British
Oh,
actor.
man.
Oh yeah. Oh. Pierce Prospect. I said his name wrong.
You got it though. We know you know who it is. We're gonna give it to you. We're gonna
Yeah.
give it to you.
Yeah, yeah.
We're gonna give it to you.
Yeah.
Okay, so Pierce
Okay.
Brosnan in what?
Okay. All right, Mamma Mia.
Like it. All right.
Oh,
Oh,
nice. Yes.
okay.
Mamma
Nice.
Mia.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
hold on. Amanda
choose on that.
Seyfried.
Okay.
Ted 2. Ted 2.
All right. Mark Wahlberg. Here.
Which one?
What?
Here. It's
I'm
like
sorry,
his
I'm-
first. It's like his first film.
And you think I'm gonna know this?
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, wait, what?
What?
What did you
Oh,
say?
man.
I don't get it.
I went for that one because there's
Oh.
another big actress in that one too. So, but dang, should have chose.
See, I think that
Excellent one.
if you wanted to like, there are varying difficulties of this game. So I think Brian
Totally.
could play the like, haha, rookie edition. You know, like all first and sophomore films. Haha.
I don't know. Like those other ones, those first 2 rounds were pretty tough. Like
I think it depends on the person, on the
know for sure.
viewer, because
Yeah.
there are some movies I can just tear through actors all day long and then I'll hit a wall.
Right. No, totally. Me too.
There are also little pockets
Yeah.
where you're like, oh, I can't get out of the Kevin Smith universe, man. I can't.
Right.
Everything's
Okay.
Randall.
All right, so I cheated a little bit. We're just gonna go with this.
Okay.
Okay, so Reese Witherspoon,
There you go.
Legally Blonde. I'm trying to mess with you guys. That's all I can do.
Okay, so Legally Blonde, Reese
Legally
Witherspoon, Legally
Blonde.
Blonde. So in that movie, you have. Hold on. Wow. Hold on. No,
So
Selma
that's a good
Blair.
one. That's a good
Selma
one.
Blair
Oh, okay. Okay.
is in. Hold on. Cruel Intentions.
Okay.
Yeah. Sarah Michelle Gellar. Scooby Doo.
Oh
Nice.
yes, Matthew
There
Lillard.
you go. Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Hackers.
Nice. Okay.
Ooh.
So we're gonna
Man.
go
Okay.
Angelina Jolie in Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Nice. Okay. Brad Pitt. What's the one? Brad Pitt. We'll go with. Oh, there's so many to choose from.
That's true.
Not the one I want. Yeah. Oh, Brad Pitt, Legends of the Fall.
Um,
Couple of big names in
Legends
that
of
one.
the Fall.
Couple in there.
I know, but I can only remember that like. Only a
Yeah,
little
remember
bit
too.
of the film.
It's later for him. So
That's true. This is very true.
Okay. Anthony Hopkins,
Yes.
Silence of the Lambs.
Very nice. Very nice.
Cool.
So we'll go with Jodie Foster in Contact.
Man, you're like reading my mind. Matthew McConaughey.
Mm.
Matthew McConaughey. Oh, Interstellar.
Mm.
Okay, Interstellar. Okay, let's see here. trying to remember. That was actually one of my least favorite Christopher Nolan films.
Oh.
Are we still sticking with actors? Or are we going
No,
with
All you gotta do is declare it.
go.
So declare
Yeah.
it. You can say
Thank
director,
God.
blah blah
just-
blah. Yeah. But then here's the trick.
Okay,
All right,
actor.
here we go. Chris.
You have
No,
to
go ahead.
keep it
Say
on-
Chris Nolan, but I'll tell you the trick once you do it. So go ahead.
No, yeah, tell me the
Okay,
trick. Go ahead.
okay.
Well, so you cannot, much like the actors. So if you say Chris Nolan, I can't use Chris Nolan to leave Interstellar,
Oh,
and then I
gotcha.
can't say him again to pick another movie. So you have to then go to
Okay,
either
but
actor.
it doesn't rule out anything that Christopher Nolan does.
No, you get to go ahead and say it. You can say him and
Okay,
then switch
okay.
movies.
Yeah,
It's like
that's what I figured.
That's
think
Okay,
of like
okay.
Uno, like Uno.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So Christopher Nolan, and we're gonna go with Inception.
Okay, nice. Okay,
Cool.
so now we're gonna go with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and we're gonna say Looper.
Ooh, cool. All right. So I can go. Oh, funny. I don't know if there's a couple ways I can go about this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go Ryan Johnson
Nice.
and Last Jedi.
Mm. Controversial pick.
Yes, I know.
Are we talking about real movies now? I'm just kidding.
But
Every film has its own qualities.
Listen, Muncie
if
says.
Last Starfighter. Yeah.
Muncie
if
says,
Last
"I'm
Starfighter-
just sitting here, not remembering any of these names. I'm sorry."
No, it's okay. When I get stumped, I'm
That's
starting to like just kind of like IMDb is my friend right now. Okay, so that I can go with. Okay, so we said
you
Last
go.
Jedi.
Yeah.
And we are going to go.
Are you just looking through the actor list? Because that's what it looks
No,
like.
I'm not. I'm
I know,
I'm
but you're-
actually not.
Woo.
Um,
I'm kidding.
only if I
course.
get really stumped. I'm totally a cheater at this point. You know. No. Let's see. Last Jedi. Okay, so we're gonna go with. Oh dang, his name is completely escaped me. Hold on, hold on.
You want me to give you initials again? It seems like a good
No,
fair cheat, like a
I
hint.
I met the dude
not
at a
bad.
Comic Con. I'm
Oh.
trying to like.
Oh,
That's an awesome
Like-
person to meet.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna need you guys' help, Finn.
So
I had a feeling that's what you were thinking.
so he's British.
Right, I know.
So I'm trying to use that as a means to try to remember his initials for you. So bear with me.
Okay. Okay.
Let's see.
Do
So
you remember his name?
do I? Or are you asking somebody off camera there that I'm yeah.
No.
That's what I thought too.
Nobody's down here with me. Let's see.
I do remember his name if I can think about it. Hold on. This is very embarrassing for me.
No, it's okay because I'm literally like at a
It's not
loss.
coming to me.
I know the name. I even told you once that I met him at a convention.
I know, and that's
I wasn't
awesome.
all that impressed with him.
Yeah, and you got some others too.
John Boyega.
There you go.
John Boyega. All right,
Yeah.
attack the block.
Okay, now we're stuck.
Yeah.
Pass.
Yep.
Hard pass.
Oh man. Yeah, that's a hard pass for me too. Yeah.
Okay, so
Well
round
done.
round 4. Here we go. Round 4, and then we'll have to move on because we've got a couple more
Yeah.
minutes here. Round 4. I'm going to start us off with Samuel L. Jackson in Kingsman.
Oh,
Oh. Dang.
Kind of a nod to a couple
Alright.
weeks ago.
Yeah. Kingsman.
oh, I'm just gonna say this real quick. For attack the block, the big name that you would have remembered if you would have thought about it, Jodie Whittaker,
Oh.
the Doctor.
Yeah. Oh,
Are you? Is that
man.
a Whovian thing?
She's the
Yeah.
she's the current Doctor Who right now, isn't she?
You would.
Yeah,
I would
I
be at a
think-
loss to tell you that. So
That's
think she's-
I only know because of news reports. I don't
Oh, okay.
like I told
Yeah.
you, Doctor Who terrified me as a kid. So
that's makes sense.
so
Those old ones would terrify me too.
Yeah.
Right.
Samuel Jackson.
Samuel Jackson,
Kingsman.
and then dang. There's like
Arthur.
2 names.
There's at least 3 big names in that movie.
Yeah. I mean,
Actually,
they're coming
there's
to me.
4 or 5 if you really get to. We just watched this for the show.
Oh,
So-
you know what? Peter Pascal. Yeah, I gotta think. Another movie he's in. Peter Pascal's in that.
Oh, he was in
Oh.
the second one. He's not in the first one.
Oh, really? I thought he was in
Yes.
the first one.
He's in the second
Oh,
one.
okay. Oh, okay. Back to square one. Man, you got me.
All right, that was an easy stump. Okay,
Yeah.
moving to Marvelite. I stumped him.
Okay. Okay. This one might stump you guys. I'm hoping it will. True Grit.
We're
I
talking
literally just forgot the actor's
Coen
name.
Brothers. Coen Brothers,
Just
or
hold on. I did.
You
what
did the
the
movie
world?
first. Yep, you got to give us the
The whole-
actor.
I completely. I know. I'm trying to think of the name of the actor now.
I can give you one.
Okay, we'll go with this. Haley Seinfeld.
there
True
you
Grit.
go.
Okay,
'Cause I
so that
literally
is the
forgot
Coen
the
brothers.
actor, huh?
So that'll be Jeff Bridges
Yes.
in
Yeah.
The Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
I'm the dude.
And we can just go on a Coen Brothers circle here. All right, John Goodman, Raising Arizona.
Excellent film.
Yeah, love that.
Just the screaming part. I can never get over that part.
Right? I know. It kills me. Yeah.
What do you got, Marvelite? Raising
I'm
Arizona.
trying to think here real quick.
Ah.
You know how long it's been since I've seen this?
Oh, really? You don't remember who High is?
No, literally, I don't.
What about his wife
Hmm.
or his two best
Wait a
friends?
second. Wait. Raising Arizona. This is early '90s, right?
That's accurate. Late 80s, early 90s. Coen
So
brothers.
you're doing the streaming. So
Yeah.
are we talking about Nicolas Cage?
There you go.
Hmm.
Okay.
Very nice. That's High.
Okay. Okay. Nicolas Cage. We'll just
Yeah.
go easy. Face Off.
I was gonna say in Off the Deep End. No.
Oh.
Face Off would of course then also star John Travolta.
Yeah.
Ooh. Hasn't made a movie in a while. Let's see. John Travolta. Domestic Disturbance.
No.
That movie is
Oh,
so
damn.
bad. That movie is so awful.
Man.
There's a scene
Domestic
in which Travolta, in which another actor is picking up yet another actor. Don't want to say their names because that'll ruin the game. And the actor being picked up lifts their leg even though they're supposed to be deceased. It's pretty terrible.
Oh.
It's pretty bad.
Oh man. What?
Domestic Disturbance.
Yep.
Domestic disturbance.
Starring John Travolta and another really tall actor.
Oh, is that Tim Robbins?
A different tall actor.
Different tall actor. Yeah. I don't think I'm gonna get this one. Domestic disturbance. It's like one I've seen one time.
Because no
Oh,
offense
well,
to
I need
anybody on the project, but that's about what it was worth.
Right.
Marvelite's
Yeah.
on it. He's looking it up. He's like, I
know,
gotta see this thing.
Yeah, I'm up to pass, man. Damn. Yeah.
Hold on. Let me try to help
What
you
we
because you
got?
guys gave me help. No, I'm
I'm
stumped.
thinking of another actor, but I don't think that's right either.
Let's hear it.
I'm getting a
Let's hear the guess.
Ray Liotta.
Good try. No, not quite. But still, that's
No.
like you're in the right
I think
vein
it's
of style of
That's
actor.
another. Yeah. It's another film that he's in. That's like that's similar.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is an actor in this film that is well known to being in Adam Sandler films.
And he's really tall.
He's really tall.
He's also known as being kind of an ass. In real life and
my
on screen.
God, what? Oh yeah.
Okay, here. I'm going to give a really
Wow.
obscure clue. I love
Oh.
obscure clues. Okay, so this is really obscure, so pay as close attention as you can. So this actor's best friend in real life, or at least seemingly so, has now gone on to direct huge films that have changed the industry and is a huge
Vince
director.
Vaughn.
There you go. I knew you'd get the
man,
obscure. Yes.
Of course, I got the obscure one. Yeah.
So I'm thinking
Oh, wow,
Swingers,
yeah.
John Favreau,
Wait.
all that.
Oh, funny thing is,
Right.
Snippets and I were thinking
That's
about
so
two different
funny.
people.
What? Oh,
Oh,
who were you
Vince
thinking
Vaughn
of?
does not go into Adam Sandler films.
Well, I thought he was in everything that was really weak.
No, Steve
comedy-wise.
Buscemi. is
Oh,
who I was talking about.
Buscemi.
Oh,
Buscemi.
yeah.
That's
Buscemi's in,
right.
like, every-
Buscemi's the one that lifted
every
his
film.
leg when Vaughn was putting him up on the table. You guys got to
Oh,
go to that part.
okay.
It's so bad. I'm like,
That's-
Steve, take 3, man. Like, let's move back
Right,
on
like,
this. Don't lift your
that's
leg. You're
hilarious.
dead. You're being put into an incinerator. You should not be lifting your leg. Like, isn't that rule number 1
Oh,
as an
man.
actor? If you're dead, just let them lift
Yeah,
you.
just-
Just let them.
Exactly. Just
That's
yeah.
the rule.
Be-
Anyway,
be dead.
sorry. I love Steve. Steve
That's
is
awesome.
he's a
That
great
was fun.
actor. His
fun.
rendition of Doctor Strangelove in Armageddon is fantastic. So.
Yeah.
Ah,
Sure.
so I've realized
Right.
we're gonna move into that was a fun game. I hope you guys want to play it again sometime. I really enjoy that
Yeah.
game.
No, thank you. That was yeah.
It's hard, but it's
More
fun.
challenging than I thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're on the spot. You know, this is something I used to play
Right.
in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
pizza parlor. We'd be washing dishes and be like, oh,
Nice.
you know, Tim Robbins,
Cool.
Tenacious D, Pick of Destiny. Oh yeah. Ben Stiller. You know, anyway,
Funny.
so we're gonna move into Explorers. But what I think is really interesting about this film is this to me, I'm gonna get as passionate about it as Marvelite got about Enemy Mine. This movie,
Mhm.
I felt the nostalgia watching it that I felt when I was 12 when I watched this for the first time. And it's because I
Right.
related to these three kids on a different level with each. I had motorcycles as a kid, so I related to the kid with the little, Honda
Mm-hmm.
80. Um,
Yep.
I wanted to be a nerd, but my parents pushed me away from it. But I had the weird household nobody wanted to go to with the odd parents and the weird foods. So like
Yeah.
Wolfgang was like
Your
my
household
spirit
is so
animal, right?
funny.
And
Right.
then Ben was just like the every kid, right? But except he was the nerd.
Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
that kid knew everything about film. He knew every movie that was
Mhm.
coming out going to be on TV. Like, so I had these three elements of these three kids, and I think
Right.
the movie does a really good job with its exposition, its pacing. It really picks up what's going to happen, and any excuse that you have to pick the movie apart and go, that couldn't happen. The kids give you something. They're like, well, of course, this couldn't happen, but in this movie it will because, well, for a lot of fun reasons, but the main reason being that it's obvious that they're going to tell you this is going to work, like they tell you in the film as it goes. And what's great is even though it shouldn't work, all the things these kids build and create in Thunder Road shouldn't work, but
Thunder Road, yeah.
because they're being led by these more advanced aliens, it does work.
Right.
So they think they're doing it
Yeah.
and then just getting lucky, but in fact they're being led by aliens.
Mm-hmm.
Spoiler alert, those aliens of course are just kids and can't
Yeah.
do anything themselves and are just doing their best. And if you pay close attention, their dad is a plumber, and they're actually just piecing
Yeah.
together parts too. And anyway,
Yeah.
so that's the kind of the whole premise of the whole film. But the part that sticks
Mhm.
out to me is this movie's meta. It knows when it's being made and what it's referencing. It references Star Wars dozens of times. Star Wars, Star Trek, other
Oh yeah,
big stuff.
almost. I mean, like
It's referencing all the way through.
literally, it references Star Wars. Yeah.
Yeah, not only with the drive-in, which is a great scene, but also they do a lightsaber scene for a moment.
Yeah, there's that whole lightsaber with a flashlight. Like who didn't do that when they were kids?
Exactly. And this was, I think, one of the first films that just nodded at Star Wars, but we're going to make our own thing. And I believed it because these three kids felt like it was a weird, rough relationship where they knew each other, but just because they had to. I don't know. There's a lot of elements to this movie that are like that for me. So that's my setup for Explorers because it's one of my childhood favorites. I'm going to let you guys go for it.
Yeah. I think you hit on a lot of the same things that really I like. I rewatched it very recently, and I felt the exact same way. It was like, none of this like really. I don't know, I just bought into it like more so than I thought I would on a rewatching. And like we were talking earlier, like just from like a mixing of practical effects with the superimposed images that they had to do back then.
Mm-hmm.
Just like helps you believe it more. Like there's that scene where that little ball, the glowing ball, just bounces all over their basement and just like is just destroying everything. All the destruction was done practically. Like you can see that is like they have rigged things up in that basement. And God bless those child actors that they didn't get hurt, hopefully, with all that flying debris and everything. But this ball is just like destroying things, and they just did it all practically, with the destruction. I love that. I mean, and yeah, and these kids are like these kind of like misfits in a way, and so like they don't really have their own tribe to kind of go to, so they form their own. You know what I mean? And then the idea of like of fate or destiny kind of like speaking to them, like
through dreams.
Ethan Hawke's through dreams, right? Like they're being spoken to in these dreams, and that's how they are inspired to build this amazing spacecraft from a from a tilt-a-whirl, ride at an amusement park. I mean, it's just like brings together all these things that you would do as a kid, and like you want to like explore. I mean, it's literally called Explorers. That's what we want to do as kids. We're always like on our bikes, just like tearing ass through, town, just be home by dark, before dark. That's it. That's
before the lights come on.
Yeah, exactly. And you're just exploring, and that's what the 80s was for us kids for the most part. And like I feel like that a lot of that is in this, it's this group of kids and exploring and like just trying to find their own tribe, and so I really I loved watching it again, and it really just I felt it like I was that kid again, watching it again, and I loved it just as much as I did way back when. So yeah,
That's awesome. Marvelite.
yeah.
So it was interesting. I was just looking up some of the stars. Like we had the three main kids. We had the actors were Ethan Hawke, River Phoenix, and Jason Preston. And we know, River Phoenix, dies later on in life here
Yeah.
from this film, and we really didn't get to see the potential of what he, really could have brought to
Right.
cinematics. I think he would have been like a Heath Ledger type, where
Oh,
he was kind of like
totally.
a jack of all
Mhm.
trades. We know we've seen Ethan Hawke, for
Yeah.
better or for worse, he's still around.
This is
Jason
probably one of his
Preston-
best roles, though, for Ethan. That's just me.
Absolutely. And so what's interesting is the third character, which I think a lot of us identified with or at least related to, was the Jason Preston's character.
Mhm.
And he's only done 3 things. He's done this.
Yeah.
Well, actually, he's done 4. He's done this film. He's done Lady in White, The Stone Boy, and he was an ice cream jerk in Gremlins 2: The New Batch.
That makes sense.
Oh, funny.
He's done nothing else.
Wow.
And so, which is
Huh.
funny though, because I think he was the most relatable character of the group. You had Ethan Hawke's character which was the dreamer who was looking to the stars,
And the
who was
suburban
disappointed
kid.
because he was-
Like, he was the
Yeah,
suburban
the
kid.
Yeah,
he
yeah.
was a typical
Mhm.
suburban kid with like the vanilla household,
Mhm.
mom and dad and everything else going on for him.
Right.
You had River Phoenix character, which was like the technological nerd, which was like the white Steve Urkel at
the
the time.
crazy house.
Or-
yeah.
River Phoenix grew up and shrunk his kids at some point and lost them in the backyard. But Jason Preston was like that typical, you don't hear about mom, dad,
It's
dad
true,
he's
yeah.
got problems and
Mhm.
he'd
Well-
rather not be home when his dad gets home. And
The scene when
Right.
they pull up at the
His
beginning of the
job.
movie, they pull up to his house and he's
Yeah.
like, I don't want to go home. And you're like, oh, this kid gets
he's like, I
abused.
guess dad didn't get the job. And,
Yeah.
it's like,
that's right.
and it's not like he didn't love his dad, because when they go to space, what does he bring? He brings something that his dad gave him.
Dude, that froggy's so dope.
Right. And so there was like this thing of like, the home life wasn't the best, for better or worse. I don't think the dad was abusive. It was just like the kid,
I don't know.
home
I
wasn't
got
good.
It wasn't a good environment. Like, yeah.
yeah.
I think the girlfriend protected him a lot, but I think the kid took a few punches. I just that's, I don't know. Maybe I'm reading into the 80s too much, but I think the kid took a few punches. Anyway, you were saying.
That's probable.
So
I mean, it's
you get
probable.
to you get through the three characters and
So you get
River.
these three characters, yeah. And so I mean, so it's really like seeing these guys at different ends of like society, kind of like working together, and it's interesting how they kind of like all get together. We know that the two, Ethan Hawke's character and River Phoenix, already have a friendship built, but they immediately accept this Jason Preston's character,
Yeah.
and they're skeptic, but they're interested in what's happening with the dreams and how they're materializing into something tangible. And it's definitely kind of got that Goonies type vibe to it.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
where
This is
where
Space
these-
Goonies.
Yeah.
yes,
Space
it's Space
Goonies,
Goonies.
yeah.
But I just remember watching this. This was one of those films where it was very much popcorn for me. I didn't get a whole lot, there wasn't a big message in it except for like the struggles of a kid.
See-
And I think that it was like almost a message that was like put to the adults too, like, you don't realize how your kids are affected by the decisions and the actions that you have. Because River Phoenix's character was extremely smart, but he was kind of like given full reins by his parents.
Mhm.
Ethan was coddled, and he was more of the dreamer.
But he had
And
to
then
ask
you have-
his mom, "Is it okay if I go to space?"
Yeah. That's right.
I love you, Mom. I love you.
Yeah.
So I watched this and wrote some notes. I don't always write notes when I do these movies, but this one I did mostly because I really wanted to go back to it. And I know you brought up River Phoenix, and he's somebody we lost way too young. But there are a couple other actors that actually have passed from this film. It's quite full of actors. Dick Miller, who plays the helicopter pilot, who seemingly had this similar kind of adventure when he was younger. He passed away a couple of years ago. And then Amanda Peterson, who actually plays Lori, the main love interest, passed away a few years ago as well. She is, of course, known for Silver Spoons, as well as Can't Buy Me Love, the film. Anyway, so that aside, now that that's the sad part, and it is hard to watch
Yeah.
movies with people who are past, but that's okay. There's an angle to this movie that I thought was interesting for an 80s flick, because a lot of 80s flicks are seen with a male view, period. Like, that's just, they were filmed that way,
Right.
and boys were the main audience, and it's kind of just been that way. This movie is no exception, with the exception that I think that there was much more of a love versus sexualized version of the way they approached things in this movie, where he was in love with the girl and tried to get her attention rather than just being like the weirdo. They even, like, the friend was like, oh, let's go spy on the girls, and they're like, dude, you're a pervert, and they actually approached that subject, which isn't something 80s movies do very often. So I thought that was interesting. I said that it was meta, and I meant in the fact that it knows that it's a movie, and the fact that they were willing to take every step without much caution. And when they got to space, they weren't shocked by what they found, while most kids would have been shocked by what they found, even if it was a good thing. Hold on, I'm going to get down here to where... so what I thought was interesting, and you brought this up a little bit, Marvelite, is that it's this is a political commentary on our discourse through television and the way that we view ourselves through media. So the aliens, like you were saying earlier, see our media and how we treat not just aliens, which they definitely talk about in the film, but also each other. And this has got a kind of a Carl Sagan-esque approach, because these are radio signals being sent out. They catch these signals. They see that we blow each other up. And then they go, nah, let's try a fresh approach where we'll invade their dreams and make them come to space and talk to us so we can find the good ones. So there's this need for them to find the good humans. And what I think is great is this is multi-layered in the sense that the kids from space are tinkering with things to try to reach out to other civilizations so that they can talk to them, and the parents don't want them to do it either. So you got parents on both sides that are like, don't do this, don't do this. You know, some of it's inherent, some of it's like spoken directly about, and other parts there's metaphors, but I think that's a huge part of this film. And the dad's scary as F. Like, that guy, he frightens me. So sorry. I could talk about this for a while. I wrote this all down, but you know,
too, at the same time, that
he was. There was some interspecies discussions between the sister and Wolfgang. Thought that was a little creepy.
right.
And then, of course, we've got some classic throwbacks. There's so many little Easter eggs in this movie for throwbacks, because Ethan Hawke even does the Superman pose when they're flying at the end.
Yeah.
Do you know what the two main characters are? Their names? Did you guys catch their names?
The aliens?
The alien kids, yeah. Did you catch their names?
Quack.
You're close.
Quack.
It's Whack, W-A-K, Whack, and Neek is the girl, is the sister.
Yeah.
Whack and Neek.
Okay, I have to say, my favorite part of that engagement with them and their dad was the fact that when they called him a parent, when they said parents, you could tell the father got like audibly upset with the term parents. Like, it's a derogatory term in space, because they go parents. You go, parents.
I did like that. I did. There were so many Star Wars references that we could literally line them up. The giant spider that tracks both Wolfgang and Ben down the
that was
hallway,
cool.
and then it reaches out, and all of a sudden it's a friendly spider, and it blinks with its weird technological eyes, and then it sniffs them all inappropriately, and then it starts to manhandle Ben and steals his picture.
It's like,
and whistles,
like, and then goes, woo woo, the fox whistle, what the heck, dude. And then gives it back, and then we find Wolfgang's been hanging out with Neek the whole time, and like talking about quantum physics, and she's bored. And if you read the subtitles, she's actually doing Marilyn Monroe's voice, so that's actually not her. She's mimicking Marilyn from all the 50s movies.
Oh, that's what the subtitles say.
That's what the subtitles are talking about. And then Whack actually does some amazing stand-up, which I think is great. And to this day, whenever I hear about a Rolls Royce, I can't help but think about the Rolls Canardly joke. I can never help but think about that. That joke runs through my head over and over. And then, get out of here, kid, you're bothering me. All that stuff. Like, he does all the cliche lines, but
game show host stuff.
So
I'm like, yeah.
if you were to take Whack out of Explorers and put him in like a pop culture reference like riff off, that dude dominates. He's gonna win like every 50s to 90s segment. After that, you're gonna have to get him some help, but
he's like better than Bumblebee from the Transformers movies, because he's like,
dude,
he's
that's
got
his
the
partner.
ring on his back, and he's all he's doing is tapping into everything.
That's his partner. So it's Bumblebee has everything from the 90s to now, and then Whack has everything pre 90s. Together, they would dominate every bar scene in America.
Kill it trivia. Yeah,
I would love to get. I would love to find a place that you could do like a reference riff off. I've never seen anything quite like that, but I would love to try. I would love to give my try at that. But you'd have to have a lot of stuff set up, because you can't have pre-knowledge of what's going to be mentioned. Otherwise, that doesn't really count. But that's true with like freestyle rapping. You can't know the words that are going to be used that can help create the flow.
No, you just go to the lab and make your own mixes for it.
Well, there's many approaches, but yes. I don't know. I just think it'd be interesting.
Well, just go watch 8 Mile. You'll figure it out.
I like 8 Mile as a film. It's a good movie. Brittany Murphy.
Got Anthony Mackie in it.
Mackie, dude.
Yeah, young Anthony Mackie getting schooled.
Hard. So getting destroyed.
It's pretty good.
So yeah, Explorers. We've kind of covered it. Other than the pacing for that movie to me is really fantastic. It layers itself nicely. It builds to the next scene, and every reason they're like, okay, we got to do it. We got to get back out there. And then before there's any argument, most movies have some jackhole, pseudo protagonist that jumps in and goes, but maybe we didn't have any of that. They literally were like, okay, we all dreamt it. Let's go. So we just kind of moved
so
on with that movie. Anyway.
They're building the Thunder Road, kind of like, in essence, reminds me of Iron Man 1, where he's in the workshop building his new Iron Man suit.
I like that.
Like, it's got that trial and error, and then where he's stuck in the bubble, like looking in the girl's, her window and stuff like that. Like, it's just got this like campy feel to it, and it just reminds me of like so many different type of montages of them building something.
That is one of the better montages, because by the time we're done,
for sure.
And then you got to consider the way they build it is actually kind of referencing the 1960s and 70s NASA capsules and the way that you get in and out of them. And it doesn't fly like a capsule, but it sure looks like one. And I love the Bruce Springsteen reference. This to me is a movie they should have used for Ready Player One.
Right.
If they had used this as the backdrop for Ready Player One and gotten the rights, they could have done like all those fun little in the film moments. They could also remake this movie other than Amanda Peterson being passed. They could bring another actress in and have her play the mother while Ethan Hawke plays the dad, and then it's his daughter that's going on. They pull Thunder Road out of the water, and Wolfgang's kid
That'd be interesting.
builds an iPad version of the.
I feel like the way that film ended with them in the dream sequence, I think that was the call for them to go back into space. So I think I always tend to believe that they went back into space right after, like they got Thunder Road out of the water.
Or they didn't need it. Why does Contact feel like the spiritual successor to this film?
Oh,
wow,
let's not talk about Contact.
That's crazy. Yeah, wow, I can totally see those connections.
Only because of the way they travel to space and how they connect with the, because even
she's like called to, to do this, and,
right?
Just as they are,
it's not real, but it's still
spiritual. Yeah.
And then it leads us to Rick and Morty, because then they reference Contact. So
I like Rick and Morty, but that just makes me a basic B, if you will. We got about 5 more minutes. That gives us enough time to give our reviews, and then next week we will be doing the Suicide Squad, along with a few other DC movies. I know that Black Girl Marvel will be back, and she has requested we do some DC Animated Universe stuff, so we're definitely down to do that.
Oh, cool.
I think we're going to include Flashpoint Paradox, Suicide Squad, probably one of the Suicide Squad animated movies, maybe. There's a couple of them we'll pick, but I think those are going to definitely be on the roster. And I think you guys will definitely see Brian again. He's had a good time. At least I've had a good time having him tonight.
Yeah, no, it's been great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you guys asking
Yeah.
me to do this. It's been
Yeah.
super awesome.
It's
Yeah,
fun.
thank
It's
you.
fun.
Yeah.
And we just gotta get more people to come see us. Muncie's here. I'm loving hearing him talk about Tony struggling and all the various chat things he's done. It is the first. I'm just wondering why. I know that it's Sunday, so a couple of our viewers hear us, they listen, but they don't get to come in and say hi. So if you guys are listening, thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
As far as explorers go, I'm gonna do mine last. Brian, what's your
Yeah.
over under, if you will?
Over or under. All right. Just fresh rewatch. Yeah, I gotta say it was an 8
Nice.
for me, and then as a kid it was probably like a 10 for me. So yeah, 8 and 10.
8 and 10. I like it.
Still holds up.
I like that. I like that. Marblite, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to say about the same. Definitely an 8. It was a fun film, and it's just funny because I was just thinking about like this movie. The reason why we're even, I think, talking about these films this week is, Snippet, uh, a TikTok video about. I think it started off the conversation with like the monster movies, and he mentioned Monster Squad.
Oh yeah.
And when Monster Squad was
Yeah.
mentioned, and they said that, then that was over with. And
Oh yeah.
I think the
and
Ghostbusters
so-
trailer didn't help with all the
No,
80s
no, no,
nostalgia.
no.
Yeah.
No. So the Ghostbusters,
Right?
then mentioning
Yeah.
the Monster Squad immediately made us think about like Explorers, and then I think I brought up Enemy Mine, and it's just like it's pure nostalgia at that point. And so for me, it doesn't age as well, but it's one of those films just like with Goonies, like you go back and you can really appreciate, and it just brings you back
Right.
into that era and brings you back into that time frame. So I'd probably say I'd still say for today an 8. Definitely was a 10 back when I was a kid. So
You guys are not going to be surprised by this. 10-10.
Nice.
I still love it.
I was really surprised. Like I thought when I saw it on there. Oh, can you guys still hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. When I saw it on there, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this. But then I watched it, and I was like, oh man, there was like a lot in here that I don't think I appreciated as much when I was a kid. So it was
Makes sense.
really great to rewatch. Yeah.
I'm glad we got you to rewatch some movies from your childhood.
Yeah,
That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a little thing about Explorers on TikTok because I think it deserves a little highlight. And then, please don't hesitate to come back and say hi. And you guys can catch all the movie things both on TikTok and other social media. You can also maybe find him here on Twitch if he makes an account.
Oh yeah, I'll be back. Yeah.
With that being said, the streaming demon seems to be streaming right now a little bit of Warzone. I figured maybe we'll see if this is an active chat this time, because last time I tried to go to the streaming demon, didn't work. So I'm going to go ahead and try this right now. It looks like it's working. You guys have a great evening. This has been the Real Triad Reviews with Brian and Tony, also known as Mr. Marvelite. I hope you guys have a great evening.
Good night, guys.
good night.